How we doing? Reflection, celestial rising, divine afternoon, and successful night to all observations watching this mindful message. It's your divine reflection, divine observation, and we are back with another message. And I do have oh, y'all can't even see that. I do have a YouTube video that's loading right now. As y'all can see on CapCut. So this video will be posted first. I don't want to make this video way too long at all, but we're going to be talking about the inversion in all sports and why biological men really don't spend time watching sports because what do you gain from watching grown women? Excuse me. What do you gain from watching grown women who wear tights or who wear jerseys? And to all the people who own a jersey and who dedicate their lives, they dedicate their paychecks. You get rid of family time just to give your attention to a transhumanism, Baphomet experimentation of a genetic altered being that was never physically being human till you gave your human experience up to what you praise or idolize. That's why many people who don't watch sports were seen as weird or whatever. But what do you what are you gaining for cheering for somebody else that's doing a childhood sport you've been playing? What do you gain when you understand that a lot of these sports are literally just the same exact activities we were traumatized by on the plantation that, excuse me, many of us are still sleeping to. And I mean, the plantation, a lot of these sports we were playing out of boredom. That's why the concept of slavery goes so far beyond what we are able to fathom to where a lot of stories are so gruesome, they're just so horrendous to even read about. They're not going to get shared to the public, but these sports came out for a reason. And the thing is, too, the one that I thought I was going to enter, the NBA. I mean, realistically, the acronym stands for No Balls Allowed or Nephilim Baphomet Association. There's many different acronyms for the NBA and NFL, but it's pathetic when you're really watching this stuff because these men are portraying false masculinity. And to biological men, where's the entertainment in watching that? Not only has it become soft, but it's just not the same anymore. It's all for a show. It's all just to see who can get what and whose ego can be the biggest, or who's the top dog, who's the head honcho, who's the alpha, this and that, in these different industries or associations. But these people are just the head of the oppressor, not even just the oppressor, but the oppression, because the oppressor has their wealth. They're rich by the master that is already wealthy from planting that being in the faces of the masses that are also outside the plantation. So it's like even outside the plantation, going inside the house of the oppressor, all the lights, you got the camera, you got the bread, you got the circus. All the slaves are now entertained when they go into a stadium, when they go into an auditorium, when they go into a coliseum, when they go into all of these different things or whatever. So when they're in this different area and they're not looking around them, they don't understand that it's all just an energy harvesting ritual for these beings to gain more power in financially, mentally, spiritually, subconsciously, physically. All these things happen to enhance their pyramid scheme. Let's get into this video.
Trend on TikTok about men who don't watch sports. And I don't watch sports either. I don't want to be judged. Don't judge me. I'm tired of men judging me because I don't watch sports. You're supposed to come up to me and we're supposed to bond together because you like the Jacksonville Jaguars. I just don't see the excitement people get when somebody shoots a three-pointer. Oh, that's nice. Wait a minute. He scored a touchdown? Well, that's nice. He hit a ball with a club and it went into a hole. Cool. Wait a minute. You mean he drove in circles for an hour and a half? Fantastic. Great. Wait a minute. You mean to tell me that he took a wooden bat and hit a ball and ran how people tried to tag him with the same ball he just hit. Yo, that's amazing. Like, what am I supposed to be excited over? Yo, those who know my content know that I'm a very spiritual being.
No, and that be the thing right there. That's why I reacted to this. What is there to be excited about? Okay, they got this amount of rings. Okay, they got Finals MVP. Okay, they won a Super Bowl. Okay, they're the best boxer in the world, they're undefeated. Cool. But what's that got to do with me? What's that got to do with you? Nothing, because this stuff does not matter to our higher self. So why should we care about what inverts we're sacrificed into? All we're doing is watching modern day slavery in plantations that we pay for. So instead of us just being announced to go into the oppressor's household, we're inviting ourselves to pay to get into the oppressor's household to watch the bootlickers, the coon tap dancers, the ass kissers, we're watching them play in what we consider to be hell in as a spiritual terminology. In the spiritual realm, looking down or looking face to face to the beings that people are mesmerized by. Oh, they're genetically altered, and these Nephilim beings are cosplaying in costumes to where people don't know that this is a grown woman on testosterone or some type of supplement or blood transfusion or some injection to where she's doing abnormal things that the average person would never do. So to put themselves in a higher way of playing the game, they had to go watch somebody else play the game better than them. Even if they did play the game when they were younger or in an older age or whatever, they still have some inspiration by who they look up to for the people who are still in the league. So they're giving you your guides, they're giving you all these saviors to help you distract yourself from your reality. So you can't focus on your purpose when you're watching inverts or Juwanna men play the game that you grew up playing. It doesn't matter what sport it is. It can be fucking water polo. It can be what's that shit? What's that sport? Lacrosse. It can be lacrosse. It can be golf. It can be boxing, hockey, doesn't baseball, football, basketball, doesn't matter. All these sports are meant to keep you away from learning about yourself. Because when the game is over, what do you got to do now? You wasted your money on snacks, seats, food, entertainment, and let's say the game was just ass. Now you're going home, you're driving, talking about the game, mesmerizing over it, and yet reality is still going to tell you, hey, I was here the entire time. Yeah, you may have ignored me for an hour or so, but you still got real life problems that you were avoiding. So because you're avoiding them, here are your consequences for your actions that you were avoiding because you decided to focus on a game that was not entertaining. Imagine watching the same players run up and down a rectangle or this structure that's literally just enslaving their consciousness on the inside. So imagine watching a bunch of Baphomet experiments running up and down a field or a court or whatever, and you're entertained by that. And if the thing is too, even if you turn the TV on, they've been running on that same court every single year, and you're not tired of watching the exact same spell. Yeah, they're putting the ball into the hoop and they're shooting the ball at a certain, an efficient rate, a high rate. They're doing it athletically, but it's not the same when you're cheating the game. And not only just that, when you're mocking biological men and women that got traumatized for playing this game, and then you altered our genetics into the inverse that we see today, spiritually, who the fuck wants to watch this stuff? Yeah, I do catch myself watching highlights and still studying the minds in sports and all that, but when you see through the whole distortion, it's bigger than what the service level brings to our view.
And I know that sports is just a distraction. It's just a distraction. The same way that the ancient Greeks and Romans used gladiators in the Colosseum to distract people from fucking plagues and shit, wars and all that. I mean, my eyes are open to the bullshit, so I don't need no distractions. I'm good on that. But if you like it, that's nice.
First and foremost, shout out to the creator for an open-minded perspective. Biological men that don't watch sports don't have time to be distracted by Freemasonic gender-inverted Baphomet experiments pretending to be men and women playing the sports we grew up playing. And there's nothing exciting about watching grown women taking hypnosis supplements like testosterone, HGH, hormonal therapies, traffic blood, and steroids, pretending to be men and women on a field or a court. If you are secretly worshiping or defending genetically altered athletes, then this will offend your ego. And honestly, that's terrific. This isn't for your comfort because it's about showing lies wearing a costume that holds a secret awareness of what you think the truth is. Stop hiding behind allyization and excuses. Reality doesn't bend to your feelings, and if you feel some kind of way by commenting, then you are upset that your inversion and consent to Baphomet worship is exposed out loud. And many people who are confused about their gender or even sexual inversion, they'll get upset with you or they'll get in their feelings or their feelings. Shout Society's been explaining gender inversion, but people who never read or do their own research will bash you for saying their lies out loud. You can't make this stuff up. These people made books about what they did to our people. So not only did they do it to Europeans, but they also did it to our people as well. So if these people have been doing it before World War One and before biblical time periods, how long do you think this shit has been going on? And if we are the ones that helped them be where they are, when did we start this bullshit? And why? One of us went into a realm and we lied to ourselves and blamed it on deities, and these deities knew in the future that we were going to use this inversion to gain something from it. Will get hurt because you don't idolize their satanic Baphomet gender inversion, which is basically a parasitic elite mindset that many beings in majority society has been accustomed to believing. Sports is spellcasting. I mean, this is all Freemasonry. And because Freemasons use gematria to script out these sports algorithms, the things that have happened have already been destined to happen. So the people who get all these accolades, these achievements, these trophies, these rings, it was meant to happen because many of these people, they sacrifice either blood, booty, family, they sacrifice many different things, their morality, dignity, all just to become the greatest of all time. So when you tell somebody, yeah, I don't care to watch a transformer in tights or shorts or a jersey, and people will get mad at you and say, oh, you got sugar in your tank. You ain't been outside touching grass when you were a kid. You were never on any sports team. So I can see why this and that. Stop talking about yourself. That's all it really is. People on social media only care because you're saying it. But if you never said anything, they will still consent to child trafficking, gambling, and addictions. So where now they're handing out bread to the circus acts. And when you're handing out a bunch of spells to a bunch of entertained hive mindsets, they don't get to see what they're worshiping and what they're idolizing because they're bored. When you don't have distractions in life, when you take care of your family, you got bills to pay for, you got different business ventures to handle, you got hobbies to take care of and look after, you don't really have time to sit here and idolize beings that are holograms or illusions that come from a higher plane of existence, a mental plane basically. So when you see people worshiping illusions, they're falling in love with what they can't comprehend, but it's basically their own mimicry. That's exactly why biologically watching sports, it makes no sense because you're basically watching what you despise. It's like imagine you're bashing a transgender or gays or lesbians because they enjoy what they enjoy, but then you're watching them enjoy their sport, and then when somebody tells you what you're watching, you get mad at them because they're telling you what you're watching in sports. You hate or you despise the LGBTQ community, but you watch them in the NBA or the MLB or boxing or WWE or the WNBA, and somebody be like, well, what are you talking about? Like, you, that doesn't make any sense. You don't do your own research. They made books on sexual inversion, and you're watching it, and then you're believing the spell. That's what blows my mind. That's what I'm saying. How can you hate the LGBTQ community? How can you hate gays and lesbians and transgenders and bisexual and all these terms? How can you hate that and you watch it? I mean, oh my goodness. How the hell can you hate what you watch? I mean, niggas sit there and say they don't believe in Satan, but you watch Satanism. You don't like predators, you don't like pedophiles, but you watch them on TV on your phone. Oh, honey. Come on. Come on, dog. People will say they hate something, but yet you still go and run to it in secrecy. You're a hypocrite. How can you be friends with hypocrites when they don't know what their hypocrisy is? People watch the spell, and then when you're calling it out, you're crazy? Wow. Imagine, and that's the thing too. If you want to hide anything from a human being, put it in a book. Niggas don't read no more, clear as day. So if you're not reading what you're watching and you hate what you're watching, why do you watch it in secrecy? People will go all out to have, packed houses, meetings, everybody getting pizza, alcohol, you got sodas, all the things to kill you, and yet you're watching what's killing you. Not only just that, you're watching what you are, and you secretly want to be like that because you didn't make it in sports, not knowing that you were not meant to be in that realm because they don't recruit. First of all, you don't recruit them, they recruit you, and it's clear as day you were not meant to be a circus act. So why get mad because nobody wants to watch a bunch of grown women play in a man's body? And you don't feel like you're being mocked because of that, and it makes sense. People are infatuated with child traffickers, predators, groomers, people who sacrifice their teammates for more blood to gain more prosperity in this world, the gods of this world. So when you understand that watching sports is like, it ain't really that entertaining, but I don't mind playing the game. I don't mind playing baseball, boxing, basketball, football. That shit fun. But watching it does nothing for you because once you can see what's going on as far as gender wars and genetics and all that, you just have to laugh when people sit there and say, I love this athlete. Hans our time. Do you know what you love? You Baphomet sacrifice? All love though. Peace and prosperity to all beings watching this video. Contradict everything, question everything. Have a great divine reflection.
Trans.
Man. Let's go into the next one. Let's go into the next key point. Okay, let's get rid of that. Let's focus on this. Get that on the screen, making sure I got this. If y'all see me clicking on something, right now I'm checking my screen. All right, making sure we're good, making sure you all can see it, because I don't want to have to edit over 2 hours of pausing and clipping. We're not going to do that again. That was crazy. All right, the oppressor went from castration to blood contracts, and the No Balls Allowed Association is a modernized plantation using inverted energy trapped in sacrificial bodies to keep people spiritually numb while the Baphomet science gender-altered beings perform for Luciferians that they think are God. Just because they plot in skyboxes on the next script for a game we just wanted to play without politics getting involved. Let's get into it.
James Naismith didn't create it. The origin of basketball came from the plantation. Okay? If the slave talked back, if the slave left the plantation, okay, without any slave papers, we call this free agency. In basketball, football, baseball, hockey, free agency. It doesn't matter what color you are, okay? So you were dragged back to the plantation, dragged back to the Democratic Party. And the man, his testicles were cut off.
The thing is, too, the Democratic Party, or when you're dragged back to the plantation, you're basically being dragged back to the agency. You're being dragged back to the drawing board because back then on the plantations, even now, when you're not listening or when you're not doing your part, they got to do something to where they have to gain something out of what you weren't being a part of. And if you don't want to follow their guidelines, if you don't want to follow their terms and conditions, then they got to get rid of you somehow, some way. And you may end up like Delonte West. Delonte West is a prime example of what happens when you understand the powers that be on when it comes to certain players. And as you can see, this same as that Bishop was talking about LeBron James' days are numbered. LeBron James will get exposed as well. That's why all these things that are happening, people aren't just saying it for no reason. And when this Bishop, which is most likely a woman as well, when she mentioned that LeBron James her days are numbered, that's in gematria. She's basically saying LeBron James's whole entire lifestyle was just handled. So you never seen LeBron James play. Yes, I did. I went to a Cleveland game. I went to a Miami game. I went to a Lakers game. I seen LeBron play in person. I even met LeBron. I got a signed jersey. You never met LeBron James. How you gonna tell me? I went to go see LeBron James. No, you didn't. You keep telling yourself that because you believe in lies. That's how asleep you are. Some people don't understand that in the game of virtual reality, when you take the headset off or the glasses off and you look around, there was nothing to see or witness or touch or smell or even experience. All you did was just watch what was never there. It feels real. It seems real. It sounds so real. I can, and the thing is too, the five senses, the biggest distortion, the biggest illusion of all time, these things tell you what your reality is. And the whole entire time, your reality leaves all those senses. So you can't see life, you can't touch life, you can't smell life, you can't even hear what life is being. You can't even think about life at all. So what is real? How do you define that shit? And if you defined it, that's not real. That's what you think reality is. Whole entire time, reality does not think it's real by your term. So you can agree upon that. And we can agree to disagree because we live in two different perspectives. We live in two different perspectives, and that's okay. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. But when you leave this realm or when you leave your body, you have an OBE or NDE, you will understand that everything that you see was never here. It was literally just a holographic illusion that comes from a mood altering device that people call the moon. So yes, when we didn't want to play and stuff like that, or our time was up for a certain plantation, you went through free agency. So all we're doing, we're playing the games that traumatized us. So now when the game became modernized or alchemized into what we see today, it's no different. You're still praising your trauma. That's all sports is. You're playing with your trauma. So where now your trauma can be it can take you places. Your trauma can get you into different opportunities, into different realms. Your trauma can help you meet other people's trauma to where they're great at working with their trauma. That's all basketball really is to me. You're working. How great can you be with your trauma? When you get on that court, how can you manipulate what you went through behind closed doors? There's some fucked up shit that people go through, but on the court, you can't guard this motherfucker. I mean, they coming out the court. Ooh, ooh, triple threat. You feel what I'm saying? So you got niggas who windmill. Ooh, I mean, you got behind the back. Ooh, ankles. No, like tricks. The crowd goes wild. I mean, that shit is fun. But once the clock hits 000, all those emotions was for what? The moment. And that moment you had with your teammates, that fades away. After a while, the game you love, it stops playing for you. Excuse me, you stop playing for the game. The game, you may love the game, but the game never loved you. The game only had love for the being that made it. And we will call him Luciferian.
His testicles, and also he was beheaded. Okay? The testicles, this is sick, were put inside of the skull.
And I agree. Because think about it. Somebody be like, well, how is this true? Do your research. There are so many stories that don't get talked about. It will blow your mind. Basketball, before you had a rim, before you had a net, before you had a backboard. If you don't do what the slave master said, not only will you get bug broken, not only will you get abused, put through satanic rituals, not only will you have spirits placed into your body, not only will you get your children or your family trafficked, cut your head off, they'll let their children and their children's children use your head as an ornament. And then they'll shoot your head while cutting off your balls as well. Not only just that, a lot of them may eat it when they're done, but they'll chop your balls off too, put inside the skull, or however they choose to do so. And then they're going to shoot a basket. Like they're going to shoot a ball, by sacrifice. They're going to shoot that sacrifice into the basket. So now they said, whoa, hey, let me see that. Whoa, oh shit. I ain't gonna lie, I'm making this shit. Yo, you making it all. Well, there was no net. You're hitting all basket with a skull. Skull and bones. Skull and Bones Society. Don't forget the emblem. They tell you. So when you're playing the game and you shoot a basketball continuously, think about why it takes so long to perfect your craft. How long did it take them to do the exact same thing to us? So where now we're playing the game they used against us and we do it for them. Wow. How asleep have we became? And we praise this shit. Somebody came into our house and our families. They aped us, arrested us, they burned us, they crucified us, they put a noose over our neck, they chopped our testicles off, they took our woman, altered the men, buck broke the sons and daughters. Now they're playing with our testicles, our genitals, and they're playing with our genetics, our epigenetics, and our mind, and our consciousness, and our spirit, and our skulls, and they're making games out of our body, and we're still wasting our body or sacrificing our body for the game that never loved us, that they created. Spiritual beings were never entertained by games. Why would we come to a game to be played by a game? Knowing that the game will cause us to lose ourselves. That's why some NBA players who are so great, they don't want the fame or the notoriety, they don't care for interviews and shit because they know they just play basketball because there's money involved and they enjoy the childhood game. And it's unfortunate that you have to sell your morals to get into that realm, but they gotta do what they gotta do to feed their family. I don't believe in that, but that's their script and they despise it. A lot of these people, they're happy when they go back to their country or when they go back to their families. They don't want to really play basketball for real. That's why in the NBA, you're seeing people who aren't as good as in the past. Thinking about an all-star game. When's the last time you've seen an actual all-star game when they play defense? When they had Kobe, KG, Tim Duncan, AI, Vince Carter, T-Mac, Jordan, Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, Dirk Nowitzki, LeBron, younger LeBron, I would say there was Grant Hill, Gary Payton, Shaq. There are so many different beings out there who, when you seen the game, it was like watching people consider them to be gods. So, who do you think these people are really playing for real? Why do you think they were going so hard? Because they weren't making money like how we are today. These people now, these inverted beings are so soft and they're so spoiled and so reliant on getting paid because they put in the work that these beings will say, if we don't get them what they want, they may spoil the script. So we gotta like manipulate them somehow, some way. We gotta work with them, but we gotta also do what we want to do. So they're in between duality.
Of the slave who ran from the plantation. The same process of drying the skull, but this time to testicles of a male slave who kept running from the plantation because he wanted to be a free agent, was brought back to the slave master. And the slave master's children were thrown into an apple basket. And the skull would be crushed when it hit the basket. You see, 80, not.
And if the skull was crushed when it hit the basket, how many skull and bones do you think they were collecting? Why do you think they had graveyards and cemeteries? Why do you think they had all the bones behind their houses or underneath their houses and stuff like that? That's why a lot of these houses are built on dead bodies. That's why if you are witnessing paranormal activity, yeah, you're basically sleeping on top of your dead ancestors that were traumatized by what you weren't aware of. They're trying to get your attention.
Percent of the NBA black. WNBA, what? 70% black.
The
These are
WNBA is the NBA, the NBA is the WNBA. So when you're watching the WNBA, you're watching men that didn't want to use their athleticism and they wanted to be feminine. They didn't want to be aggressive. The women that you see who are in the NBA, those are the ones who are on testosterone. Those are the ones that don't have balls, they don't have genitals, but they look manly.
slaves, Brother Apollo. Multi-million-dollar slaves. They're rich, but they're not wealthy because they don't own anything. Steph Curry's rich, but he doesn't own the Golden State.
Everything that this being said or this actor said is very accurate, and it's interesting how she's deciding to talk about what she's a part of. But no, all respect. But what she was saying made a lot of sense because even before 1891, basketball is meant to be a sacrifice to Luciferianism. So think about if you ever played a game of basketball, and only hoopers can relate to what I'm saying. The ones who had passion into how the game used to be, because it became softer than what we know basketball to be. But when you played basketball, you enjoyed it outside of the media. You enjoyed it outside of social media, outside of fame, outside of clout. just meetings and the political aspect of the game. You enjoyed it because you seen how peaceful your sanctuary was. And when I mean sanctuary, this is as far as like a church. So when these beings were taking us to church, that was just their synagogue of Satanism. Because when you understand too, the rectangle, square and the circle. So when the being was talking about the skull and the testicles and all that, in masonry, when you square the circle, you're basically putting the ego or the lens of God into a box of Luciferianism. So from a higher order of the illuminating branches of fraternities and sororities that are shadow societies, they knew that we were going to play with sorcery. And then a bunch of our forefathers, our great grandmothers and great grandfathers, they would sacrifice to youth into picking up their burdens even on the plantation. So playing the game of basketball is literally like appeasing or praising your slave master for giving you a gift that changed your life. So if basketball changed your life, who would you be thanking? Before you enter the game or before you enter practice, if you pray to a god or whatever, or if you do your symbolism, who are you doing it for? And you may say it as if, oh, don't demonize God, this and that. Either way it goes, you're praying or you're saying thank you to their version of God that these oppressors gave us. Because when we were on these plantations playing the game of basketball without having to kill each other, these beings made it barbaric. Because why? It was more entertaining. Because the fundamentals of basketball requires you to not touch your opponent. Why is that? Because I don't have to sit here and post you up to get a bucket. I can sit here and triple threat, boom, boom, pull up in your face, or just go by you and dunk on your bitch ass. But either way it goes, though, they said no. How can we genetically alter the inversion of the game? Because we want to see more. We're tired of y'all just playing it all nonchalant and you are so gifted. No, we want to be able to alchemize the game. So when they alchemize the game, when this person was saying that their children were playing with our testicles and they were putting it into a skull, why do you think they say in 2K, for example, oh, this person is cherry picking? Or even in basketball, when somebody scores the ball and they inbound it and they throw it down full court, they're cherry picking. Where do you think that came from? These beings knew that when you cut the head off from a slave, our carbonated foundation. The thing is too, if you play the game or even in real life, when you see somebody cherry picking, why do you think they call it that? When you see a cherry, what do you see? You're not just playing a game. You're literally witnessing how traumatic and unconscious you always been to what traumatized you. That's why when you sit back and observe yourself playing 2K, really ask, why is it addicting to play with your trauma? Like, think about that. There are people who put their all into the game. They invest their all into this game. They sacrifice a lot for this game. They lose sleep for this game. They don't even shower for the game. That's 2K and basketball in general. It doesn't matter what level. Think about that. These terms they use, these words they use, they're laughing at us because we don't know what we're playing with. That's how powerful witchcraft and mind control became. And we lost that? How did we lose that knowing? These beings understand, wait a minute, if I just throw this ball to my brother or my whoever, my sibling or my friend down the court on our plantation that we own as well, then I'm basically just cherry picking for what I want to keep on doing. That's what made the game alter into what we see today. So these NBA players are only mimicking what people are praising. So you're basically watching, when you go into a stadium, you're looking down and these gladiators walking or running and sweating, and they're basically giving their all in the pits of hell. So when the curtains are closed, you don't know what they do behind closed doors to maintain that image that you think is athletic. So for them to make money from this genetic altering, from epigenetic trauma, what do you think they're doing? They're injecting not only just the infusion of blood, but they're also injecting different pharmaceuticals and different sorceries in somebody's bloodstream, to where now the being that you think you see in the NBA, you think as if, oh, that's this grown man that's doing this and that, but the whole entire time you're watching a grown woman in a man's body who's doing the things that you never could do because you never put in the work. So she's basically showing you in a different masculine frame that you never could put yourself into because you don't put in the work. She's showing you that I can outwork you and I'm better than you because I was scripted to be where you want to be in life. So that's exactly why when we told ourselves, even back on the plantation, I don't want to work for the slave master's team or whatever the case may be, because imagine if 10 of us or on one plantation, and then we are chained up and we have to walk to a different plantation and go and play this team or this plantation over there. Let's say we say, bro, I don't have any shoes, because think about it, we didn't have any shoes or socks back then. So if we're telling ourselves, I don't want to play for this team, I'm done playing this stupid ass game, what would a slave master do to you? Not only will you get bug broken, not only will you get abused, not only will you get traumatized, what will happen to you? Decapitated, and then your head becomes an ornament. Your head becomes the MVP. Your head becomes the finals MVP. Your head becomes an accolade for these beings to say, if you don't do what we say, this is what will happen to you. That's why when you watch the finals, when you watch the Super Bowl, when you watch all these finales for the sports, even though they're going to do the exact same beginning again, why do you think that most of them are crying or most of them don't cry really? This shit's more than a fucking game. Like, who cares about finals MVP? Who cares about the MVP? Who cares about all these accolades and achievements? You can't take them with you in the afterlife, so what's the point of holding on to them? They do not solidify, they do not put a definite or a definitive knowing or meaning on how great you are, because everybody in the NBA, they're only great because they were scripted out to be in a realm or a world where only a few beings in the world are great at what they do because that's all that they know and knew how to do because that's what somebody told them to do before they were even born. So people say, you know what? I don't want to get beheaded for not playing the game, so I got to force myself to play the game. So after a while, once you age and then you become a different being, in this different time period, why do you think basketball became what you thought your purpose was? Basketball is not your purpose, but you play the game to find your purpose. But that purpose has no meaning because you're still playing for a god in a skybox. But if you cannot please that being in that skybox that gave you all that you think you had, and they take it from you, what do you have and who do you become at this point? The media stops loving you, you don't get any attention, there's no roster spots for you, your checks start getting cut, now you're back to square one, and people forget about you, and now you're a distant memory. They are looking for experiments who are willing to be submissive so that they can keep their transaction going. They need to alter the genetics of people who are born to be scripted actors in the NBA or any basketball industry. That's why basketball is not what you think it is anymore, because it's more than just a game. It's basically a fallacy or theatrics that people want to make something from. They want to gain something or they want to become something from the game, because think about who they look up to. Any athlete, you had somebody that you looked up to, but you never questioned how they got there. And the thing is, too, you think as if they got there by hard work. You don't choose them, they choose you. These people are meant to be control opposition to get you away from what you were sacrificed into. So you can't blame your mom and dad for introducing you to what sports is. You were born to be a sacrifice to pick up their burdens because they sacrificed their future a long time ago till you were born. And now because they chose you to help them, you're supposed to help them uplift themselves from what they are suffering in? Through a game that was meant to sacrifice your physicality? Have a great Nirvana inflection. I mean, bro, this shit, it don't make sense, man. It doesn't make sense to me because from my understanding, when did when did we ever play these games just to get noticed? That's all I want to know. Let me make sure. Okay. Hey. Zoom. Hold on. Zoom. You see me sharing? No, sweetheart. My screen is on this right now. Let's share that. Yes. There we go. Okay, we getting it now.
The slave talked back to the slave master. That slave's head was cut off, dipped in brown paint, placed in a cornfield for 7 to 10 days to dry. One of the slave master's slaves were forced the wife of the beheaded husband
Hmm.
or the that slave talked back to the slave master. That's when the slave talked back to the slave master. That slave's head was cut off, dipped in brown paint, placed in a cornfield for 7 to 10 days to dry. One of the slave master's slaves were forced, the wife of the beheaded husband
I
or the
gotta, because
husband of the
this
slave master's slaves were forced, the
slave master slave.
wife of the beheaded husband or the husband of the beheaded wife to go get the head, bring it back to the slave master, who would cut open the belly of a pig, stick in the skull of the male or the female or the child, sew up the gut of the pigskin, and will allow his children, the children not just of the slave master, but the children of the skull of the husband or the wife that was stuck in the pig. We call this the pig skin. Listen, NFL, that's the origin of the it came not out of Canton. So would allow the wife or the husband to get the head of their husband or wife, give it to the slave master. After 7 to 10 days in a cotton or cornfield, cut open, the slave master would, the belly of a pig, stick the skull in there, sew it up, and the children of the slave master would kick around the pig, including the children of the beheaded husband or mother. Their child was forced to kick around.
And I still think she's an actor as well, but she's holding a lot of accuracy. And in conclusion, this stuff is never going to stop. If we, and think about it, all sports is Freemasonry. I mean, we just got to call it how it is. I mean, Cam Newton, as you can see, 442K views just to continue to lie about who she is, but she'll get views because she's a part of the industry. When you understand that these sports were never meant for us to be playing, we can't get fooled by the industries anymore because these industries are doing this for one thing and one thing only. They basically want to see who's still unconscious into what they, let's say, continuously dedicate their entire life into focusing on. That's why if you know that there's more to life than just the game that you play, you're destined to be greater than that game. That's why many people, when they're done playing the game, it's as if society or humanity is forced to still listen to their past. That's why it's so weird when these players retire, immediately the formula podcast. Right or wrong. There are some players who are still playing, but they have a podcast. And honestly, they're not that interesting. All they can really talk about is their NBA or NFL or whatever memories. They still, and they get all their celebrity inverted friends, and they all had this kumbaya moment of reminiscing on their greatness or their greatness. All this a bunch of dick holding, basically, or vagina clitoris playing basically to where who can make this person smile, who can get this person's approval. It's weird. This is basically, networking and all of that connecting, but realistically, all you're doing it for is you want that check, you want the views, you want the attention, you want the engagement. Because when people see two of their favorite idols in the same room, oh man, they're gonna have a great goddamn day. And if it's a Saturday and your two favorite idols or your five favorite idols are in the same room talking about the sport that you play, man, you might just bust on yourself. That's where we are in society. So our people, every time they watch their favorite athlete, they drop everything that they do and they put their attention on the delusion on the field, on the court, doesn't matter. It can be soccer, football, or football, American football, because I'm not gonna say soccer, have some respect for other cultures. Basketball, baseball, all of that. All these games, they have serious enslaved epigenetic and genetic trauma attached to it. So when you're throwing that ball, when you're shooting that ball, when you're kicking it, when you're hitting it, think about where it came from. Do your research. When you do your research, Spiritual beings were never supposed to be playing the game that enslaved beings introduced themselves to. And if they taught us how to play with ourselves, where do you think they got that idea from? They were over in their country, in their cold environment, doing barbaric games that entertained them. So they brought that shit to America. Why are we playing in what they killed themselves in? They shed blood all because they love these sports that cure their boredom. And because we're so bored, we think as if we have to follow what the oppressor says in 2020 fucking five, or because your friends or your family or your coworkers or your classmates are talking about who's the best player and did you see that game, this and that, and you feel left out. Who gives a fuck? If they enjoy the game, so be it. People can enjoy whatever they want. But if you don't know why these sports were made, you are the reason why child trafficking, gambling, addictions, enslavement, slavery, why oppression is happening, capitalism, why all these stuffs are going on because people silently consent into what they secretly hate. Like you say, people say they hate Satanism or they hate the devil. They hate all the negative things that these beings are doing, but you pay for it. You watch it. You play their games. You play it daily and you waste your money on that game. You go to work just to waste your money on the game that you're running away from. I mean, they're telling us what they've been doing to us, and yet we still pay for what they did to us by enjoying what we're paying for. Imagine coming home from work and the first thing you do is get on the game and play with your trauma. Have a great and abundant divine reflection. Mm, 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 mm. What a damn shame, bro.